Are you good to go, Heather?
Well, it says it's setting up.
I got a pop-up
Okay.
that said that the meeting is now streaming.
Okay. Hit record, and I think we're good. I'm going to X out.
I got a pop-up that said that the meeting is now streaming.
Okay, we should be good.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. Today is Wednesday, January 13th, and it is 9:35 a.m. We'll start with introductions. I'm Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission.
Eileen Cotter-Howell, Commissioner.
Paula Booth, Commissioner.
Ellie James, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
And Heather Dimke, Public Works.
First thing on our agenda is public comment. Did we get any written comments submitted, Heather?
Did not receive any comments this month.
Okay. Then I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, the agenda for today, and the minutes of December 9th.
I move that we approve all of that.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no, there are no no's. Let's move into the updates. We had we'll go in the order of the agenda. Any update on the lighting at Equitas?
Yeah, I've got quite a few updates on Equitas. Actually, I guess first, before I forget, the plaque has been installed. That was finally installed last week. They were waiting for some dry weather, and I've not been over to see it, but as soon as I can, I'll get over and snap a photo of that. The lighting still has not been fixed. I've given you a couple updates, Chris, and it's changed since then. Ignition Arts, who has done the lighting. They're out of Indianapolis. They're actually going to be in town now again this week. So they will be on site, I think it was tomorrow, to do finally the repairs. They'd had some hiccups getting some of the equipment, some waterproof connections. But last I heard, yesterday, I think they will be in town this week, fixing the lighting, hopefully finally for good tomorrow. And then several folks from facilities, a couple folks from police are planning to join them Friday morning, and I'm going to be on site as well, just for a quick walkthrough of the piece and the hardware. Apparently, there's not a whole lot to the lighting other than the software and a couple handheld devices that will be in the police facility. So I'm going to kind of walk through with others so that we understand what's there, how it works, and hopefully just ask a few questions.
That sounds good. Kelly?
Of course, we're hoping that they would produce some sort of printed instruction thing that can be kept on file somewhere, right?
Right. So what we have, what I have is that maintenance and materials document, which lists out all of the different software, goes into great detail about the paints and the finishes. I've received since that time some additional tech sheets on the software and the units themselves. We have electrical system spec sheets. No real how-to that's written up, but apparently per recent emails, it's all in the software. It's a system that's already been programmed. I don't imagine that any of us are going to want in and actually want to play with the programming language or change it. So it's just kind of set. It's a matter of making sure the software keeps its updates, is what I understand, and making sure that we know kind of how to plug into it with the little handheld unit. So I don't think there's really I really am looking forward to seeing it and seeing where the pieces are. But beyond that, it doesn't sound like there's much that we're going to need to do.
Eileen?
Heather, would there be a way of maybe taping or videoing that meeting that you're having, mostly for posterity?
I can do that, I'm sure.
Yeah, because while all of you will know it, 20 years from now, maybe they won't.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I will make a note to do that. And I'm really glad that so many other staff were interested in being on site as well to just kind of see it. So.
Yeah. Is anyone else thinking about whether the colors have to change, go through all of the full color spectrum all the time?
So again, that's part of the program. Again, a series of emails that I did look through. I can find one that kind of describes it. There's 8 different colors. And if I remember, it's just set. Let me see if I can find that. Give me a second. I pulled it up just in case. All right, here's a bit more detailed maybe than folks want, but the lighting system uses a DMX protocol to transport RGB colored data from the controller to the sculpture. Controller is a Sushi DS handheld model, which is programmed using Daslight DVCI software running on Windows PC. So we have the data sheet for that. The program crossfades from one color to the next over a 4-second period, then pauses for 1 minute before moving on to the next in an endless loop. And that's 8 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, violet, and magenta. So that's the synthesis that I've been given.
Okay. I never thought it was going to go through the rainbow all the time. I'm seeing Paula shake her head.
I never envisioned that either.
Yeah, I thought it was going to glow on and then the colors would change out possibly in tandem with a event like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, or in the same way that the lights on the Marion Street Bridge are often swapped out.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something to ask these guys, although they sound like they're more the technicians, not the artist. But that I would be interested in posing that question to Blessing. It's not a huge deal. I'm obviously, I think we're all concerned about just getting the piece lit.
Right.
So
yeah, I can certainly ask if there's any opportunities to change it. It sounds like it is a software, a programming change.
Mhm.
So I'll confirm if that's something that we are interested in doing down the road. We can look into how complex that is. Otherwise, if the software is not functioning, I would like to just verify that we can at least have lights come on simply in the evening. So yeah, if you think of other questions, again, I'm hoping to ask quite a few once I'm on site and can finally see what things look like, where the bulb, the actual bulb, the lighting is, and how, just some basic troubleshooting, I think would be good for facilities. Not assuming that I would be out there the one doing that, but we have other staff on board, and it'd be nice just to know the basics, I think, for sure.
oh yeah, for sure. What are the other issues around Equitas that we need to consider this morning, Heather?
Boy, I don't know anything. Hopefully we'll have the lighting up and running this week. We have all of those data sheets. I have the warranty, I have the contract documents. We have the 1-year warranty from the date of installation on the lighting. And then we have an additional warranty on the paint and the finishes. I've gotten some instructions on if the piece were to be tagged on recommended materials for mineral spirits basically for removing. There shouldn't be any other real maintenance issues other than kind of gently wiping it down from time to time. So I think hopefully, fingers crossed, we get it lit. I think we're ready to move forward on that finally. I know we've already had, I haven't heard back from CC Media on her piece that she had completed. I don't know if you've heard from Wendy.
Nothing.
I can check back. We've already had the Salem Reporter did an article. And if you guys didn't see that, I didn't forward to everybody, but I think that was on December 23rd. So I can forward that piece. And then, so I guess it's just up to us I've got web edits for our web page ready to go. I haven't submitted those yet. I was waiting for the piece to be again up and running before we pushed it any further. And then I don't know if we wanted to post that news story that I had sent out to a couple of you on our own.
Yeah, I'll take another look at that release. I just haven't gotten back to it.
Yeah, I was going to look at it too. And then I saw the story in the Salem Reporter and I was like, oh, okay. So I'll look at it again with an eye to that, and then maybe some follow-up ideas that we could do to other media. Did you end up speaking with Carly? She had emailed after our last meeting.
Oh, I haven't heard back from her again. I think Angie was going to connect her with Blessing, and they've been fairly busy, so I should check back, though I haven't.
Okay.
I'll make a note to do that. So otherwise, no concerns from my end. I feel really pretty good about the packet of information that I have, and that I'm going to be on site Friday, unless other folks have concerns.
No, the piece looks good. All right, should we move on to the library? All right, we had a good meeting on Monday afternoon with the selection committee for the library project, and Zoomed in with Amanda Wojcik, who had taken her concept refinement to another level. She had a large paper model that she shared, and I felt good about the direction. She asked that we not share her drawings widely. So I have some things on my phone, but that I took from my screen. But, she's continued to use her concept of a system of waterfalls that are interspersed with some large numbers reflecting the Dewey Decimal System. And then she has also created a series of ledges that are right now perforated with some holes, circles, like hole punches on a large scale that she says, are reflective of the decimals in the Dewey Decimal System. But this is all quite a large scale and very abstracted, with less color than she had proposed earlier, but different elements would be matte or high gloss white. So that's where we are. Rachel, what else should we report on that meeting about the Amanda Wojcik piece before we get into the other things?
Just that, I would just add that she's continuing to flesh out her ideas. And I think, though, now she's at a really solid point in terms of what the finished piece will look like. I mean, my understanding was that there won't probably be any significant changes to the design that she shared with us. There are just some fine tuning that she's working on in her studio before the piece is fabricated. And I think it looks really nice. It's taking on a much more three-dimensional feel. I mean, it's moving into three-dimensional space. So that I think is nice, considering how large an area the piece will occupy. So and the physical space of the library, how big that area is. So yeah, I think it's looking really good.
Yeah, and the windows that have been opened on the commercial street side you can now see what that looks like as you drive by. So the space is it's going to be really light filled and open. It sounded like Amanda is going to come up and try to get into the building with Erin Kimsey. And depending on how that plays out, we might be able to join them to get a look at the space, which I think would be a good idea considering the other item that we talked about, and that is the existing collection and prioritizing what works are should go back in first or not go back in at all. I guess the architects recommended that the birds be reinstalled in an area that it goes up to or goes to the children's section, and Sarah, the librarian, does not feel that that's a suitable location. So
What was her reasoning, Chris?
apparently the birds are considered to be scary by some people.
The children might be afraid, apparently.
I guess she's not a fan of the piece either, that for what it's worth. So figuring out, given the constraints of the work, is there an alternate space? If so, where is it? And if not, if there is no alternate space within the library, what happens to the work? Where else could it go?
Given how difficult that work is to be installed, I think it's important that also given the feedback there, that the architects come up with multiple spaces. It's not really something that we will be able to install in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Yep.
So also during that meeting, Kate from the Library Foundation expressed the desire to work, and I think we've talked about this already, but collaboratively in terms of selecting a list of artworks that will go back into the space, because we already know that there will be a number that won't fit, or for other reasons won't work in the new space. So we should probably set up a meeting with her sometime soon to kind of start going over that list. I know we talked about doing that. But sounds like she's ready and she would welcome our input.
I've been talking to her over the last few days.
Oh, good.
And I've found the initial list that we were working from the two collections. So yes, we are working collaboratively, because we have to think of this as one installation.
Yep.
Right.
Rather than two separate competing collections. So there will be a lot dropped out. But again, because we don't know the dimensions of the walls, we don't know, there's just a lot of questions still. So
I think we need to put in a specific ask to Laura at Hacker for locations that the architects would identify as being viable for artwork, and then to give us a list of those locations and dimensions. Because like you're saying, you can't really make those decisions without knowing what the available space is.
Paula, do you have anything?
Oh, just that in our original conversations, we had talked about waiting until we could actually see the space before curating the collection for the space. And I just was wondering how, I haven't seen the space at all. How, how far along is it? And when would we possibly be able to actually see it? I feel like we need to see it before.
It's on schedule. I mean, they're on schedule for opening in the summer, late summer, I think, mid to late summer. And have you seen the renderings of the architectural renderings of the space?
Not in a very long time.
Okay.
When we first started this conversation, we looked through all the renderings that we had, and we did talk about spaces that looked like they would be available for art. It would be nice to have confirmation.
So
I guess it's hard for me to do it on paper without actually seeing anything.
Because there are going to be considerations. I mean, obviously the change in the light and the new windows, I mean, that's all going to affect, and also the finishes that they're using in the library, and the upholstery and the carpeting and the wayfinding signs. I mean, they've shared some of that, but it would be nice to know, to look at that all comprehensively, and as well as have a list from her in terms of first floor. There are, 7 potential walls, and these are the dimensions of those walls, so that we can just at least get a ballpark idea of how many artworks we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, being able to actually go into the space would be really beneficial.
We did go through and kind of mark off one artwork that was important enough that we felt like it should be there, and that also kind of fit the new aesthetic of the space. So we've kind of, I mean, Eileen, am I wrong in that? Didn't we
Oh,
kind
you're
of
right.
already chose, not that it's a set list, but we did go through and kind of siphon out stuff that we already knew would not fit in the space visually or physically. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll come together rather quickly once we have all the information.
Can we create some kind of shared document where we can drop in the images of those pieces just so we can see them? I think that would be useful
It's a good idea.
to be able to just,
There are 33 artworks potential from us.
okay.
And 40, well, there are several pieces out on loan, but there are roughly about 47 pieces from the other collection, from the foundation collection.
Are those their are these the totals, or are these the culled lists?
No, these are the totals.
Oh, okay.
And out of those, there are roughly about 8 pieces that are supposed to go back in because they are required to remain in the
Okay.
library. So there are some
Stipulations.
different requirements that we have to consider going forward. And I'm not really sure if they're going to fit because they were supposed to be in the heritage room.
Oh, right.
And-
You're talking about those bird
Right.
things? Okay.
Right. But also the
Painting
ewer,
prints, I think.
the ewer painting too. That's part of that. And what was the other one? Horsefall, Robert Horsefall, the great blue heron.
Oh, right. Okay.
So there are a number of those that we have to consider. Several of the pieces are sculpture. The teakwood screen, for instance, and the birds. And some of those sculptures are outdoors. So again, that's not a whole lot of artwork, to be honest with you. There are a couple of pieces that could possibly move out, like the big evolving. If the convention center was interested in that piece, that could move out.
What could you say that piece again, Eileen?
It's called Evolving. It's a Richard Davis piece, and it was hanging outside of the Luke's auditorium.
Blue one with the circle.
Huge blue with a big circle. Yeah.
I'm not bringing it up in my head.
It's giant.
There is not a lot of room at the convention. We'll get to the convention center on the agenda, but
Okay.
there really is not room at the convention center for more stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing to consider might be that, it's been a few years since we installed the pieces that are in the council chambers. Maybe we could substitute it in there and take something from the installation in that space and move it to the library, because it feels like a couple of those the larger pieces in there might fit well with the new look in the library. And then it would also bring those artworks to a different audience or for a while. So that might be something to consider.
And if I could say this, the one thing that I would like is to have the freedom to actually think about this for a while. Paula and I need that space. And of course, both of us feel very strongly that we need to actually see the space in order to do it. And I know that that may not fit in with the deadlines. How do the rest of you feel about that?
Well, can I comment first and
Sure.
say I certainly agree with that. I think Amanda will come up for a walkthrough maybe sometime in February. And I think that the general framing, from what I understand from Aaron at the city, is that the work has been proceeding on schedule. So, the staircases that were being moved that's done. And so you should be able to, and the walls are up. So you should be able to see, you may not see the final finish on the wall, but you would be able to see, a corridor or a wall space, for example. Yeah.
I have a comment. My wife Lena and I, whenever we're kind of redesigning spaces, we put it in the computer and we put our art in the space, and so we can lay it out and see what fits where and just kind of get it all laid out. And I would imagine that the architects might be able to do that if we could supply them with the stuff, and at least that would give us a chance to, or give you a chance to kind of work on it beforehand. I know it's not the same as seeing the finished place, but just a suggestion.
That would be quite helpful, especially for the larger pieces. I'm not really worried about the smaller ones. I don't know about you, Paula, but I'm pretty sure that those will fit in fairly well. But I am concerned about some of the larger pieces and the lighting
Yeah.
component, so.
Yeah, those are like the anchor pieces that will set the tone and then define what the adjacent pieces would be. And so I agree, Eileen, you kind of have to figure out what those anchors are going to be before you can start filling in the other stuff.
So going forward, I wonder if we could ask the architects to resolve a couple of these issues. For instance, where will the birds go?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're finally told there is no place for it in the library, then we have to go with that marching order, I guess. Unfortunately, it was a site-specific work. And so, that would be a shame, I think, not to have it in the library. We are already taking out a piece that Sarah didn't like, and so apparently a lot of the librarians don't care for it. So that was one that I just actually crossed off right away.
Which piece is that?
It is Netta King. It's vine maple and volcanic rock. It was on the basement, lowest level. And it was outside of one of the meeting rooms. It was pretty much buried already.
Okay.
So,
And maybe, that one, what do you think about that in the chamber?
it's a rather dark piece. And yet I think that what you're suggesting, Rachel, is a good idea to kind of think in terms of the rest of the pieces as options as well. But this particular piece, it's again, it's not a huge piece. Do you know which one it is, Paula? Yeah, so I don't really think would stand out very well in the chamber, but we can look at that.
My thought on that piece is that it's a piece that might work better with other work that would put it in a context.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit so well on its own.
Yeah, to like activate it.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
So we could use the architect's help with the birds and with the Setzel screen. And again, if we do get the Leduc, and it sounded, I wasn't at the last meeting, but it sounded like there hasn't been any communication back from Betty Leduc. So maybe we can make sure that that is resolved too.
Right.
But that is a very long painting, and we had assumed it was going to be at the base of the stairs, but now the stairs are gone. So you know, again, that would be one that we could use some help with from the architects.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's also, at the convention center, there's a Harry Woodman painting that was purchased in 1972 that I think, and now with the addition of the new works at the convention center, I think we ought to consider whether there is an appropriate space at the library for this Harry Woodman painting, which I think would be quite dramatic in the new, given the new interiors that the library will have. So that's
Okay.
just a question. It's pretty big.
Mhm.
It's 80 by 71 inches. It's really a lovely painting.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think that we should consider bringing in some of the pieces that are either that aren't at the library, but would work well with the look of the library. I mean, I feel like also that the piece that we moved into the council chambers, the O,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure.
that for some reason the space, the renderings of the new space, they have this kind of, you know, they do have a modern and kind of, I think some of the mid-century pieces that we have that have that kind of complementary aesthetic would look nice in the library.
I
Yeah.
agree.
We also
Okay.
have some pieces that are currently over in the mayor's office as well.
Mm.
And so, you know, I don't really want to take them out of the mayor's office since he's requested them.
Yeah.
So,
I don't recommend going in that direction.
You might like something new.
It's, yeah, I mean, we could see if there's something at the library that the mayor might be interested in, but I wouldn't go and cherry pick works that he specifically requested out of his office. I mean, yeah,
yeah. And one of the questions that still hasn't quite been answered is whether or not we are going to periodically reinstall the library, or whether these are permanent installations, which would be a break from what has been going on in the past.
I think we should have that conversation after you've picked out the priority works and we've determined how much work is not going to go back in the library. And what happens with those.
Yeah, so again, I guess that for us, it would be very helpful if we could get answers from the architect as far as the birds and the Setzel screen and the Betty LeDuc, possibly also the Louis Bunce piece, which is pretty central to our collection, but also for the library too.
And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the Louis Bunce. Was that?
The Louis Bunce is, I don't have the size on it.
I can look that up.
It's pretty huge. It's called View.
Okay.
It's called View.
Uh-huh.
Probably like 5 by 6, something in that range,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's large.
It's
Right.
big.
It's bigger than my
It's-
arm spans.
Actually, I just looked,
Body
it's,
scale.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
67 by 60. So yeah, good 5 by 5.5.
5'7". Yeah.
Good guess, Paula.
Everything's in relation to myself.
Right.
That's how I measure.
You could sleep on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to reach out to Hacker, and we started this discussion earlier this week, so I don't think it'll be a big surprise, but it sounds like there's kind of a couple big things. One is I need to check in with them on these larger pieces and maybe include that Harry Woodman, is it? That's presently at the convention center as another large one that we might be looking to house in the library.
Yeah, that would still
So I
be.
have a-
question
I-
mark.
I have a question. I'm looking at this catalog that was produced, which says someone has proclaimed that the Whitman painting will hang permanently in the Salem Conference Center.
Oh,
Well, this body determines the whereabouts of the work in the city's collection. And if that work was acquired in 1972, and we determine that it's now appropriate for the work to be installed in the new improved library, then this body has the right to make that decision.
Well, and there was no conference center in 1972, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
what is that referring to?
I,
All I think of is that sometimes it, like for instance, with the other little ones, all those birds, it's a condition of the gift.
Right.
And in the little birds paintings case, that was agreed to by the library. So I don't know, maybe the Widman was a gift as well.
it was not, it was purchased from the 1972 Mayor's Invitational.
All righty, so that's good. That frees it up.
Yeah,
It would be gorgeous in the library,
It would.
I know.
especially with the O sculpture from the chamber that I'm thinking of in the
Yeah.
area. That'd be
I
lovely.
mean, I was just actually thinking the same thing, that would go real well with the O.
I mean, I'm not saying we should raid the mayor's office, but I do think we should cherry pick the art collection to showcase in the library. I mean, it's
I
going to
agree.
be a brand new space. This is an opportunity to really show off the works in the collection in their best light. And yeah.
Well, the mayor has at least one of Constance Fowler's work, which actually was what Amanda Wojcik had mentioned in her talk.
Oh, right. Okay.
But also he's got one of the big halls.
Right.
And I think he also has a Sudell McCulloch, large one.
Well, it looked like you had
Did he
a,
fit all that in his office?
Yeah, Sudell's, I think that particular one that he has is not quite as big. The big hall is on the wall across from his desk.
Okay.
I just had a question about the small birds from the heritage room.
Yeah.
When we did the condition reporting on that, I thought I remembered that there were some mat issues with the mats not being archival, perhaps.
I think that there was
But-
one. Yeah.
My question is really, they have to stay in the library. The framing and matting on those is extremely dated. I do remember them a little bit of discoloring perhaps in some of the mats. I'm just wondering if it might be possible, or do they have to stay in, could we reframe them in a more modern looking frame to make them fit in the library a little better? Or is that kind of bastardizing the artwork? I don't
think
know
so.
what
I
the
mean,
protocol is on that.
museums do that all the time.
Framing is completely up to the current owner.
Mhm.
Because they're lovely, but they really are not going to look nice because the framing and the matting is so dated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, the Heritage Room is gone.
Yeah.
So they can't be put back in the place where the
Mhm.
previous owner expected them to be hung permanently. So.
Well, I think that you bring up a good point too, just in terms of condition reporting. If there are any other works that need attention, now would be a good time to do that before we put them back into the library. And that includes the archival mats, cleaning, if there's anything that's terribly dirty that might need to be cleaned. And we do have funds available to be able to do that.
the set sail screen still needs, I'm sure, cleaned. That was an option when we gave that over to the law library, and I haven't had any discussions with the gal. Now I'm not thinking of her name.
Paula and I were going to go over there, but the lockdown happened
Right.
exactly right after that.
Mhm.
No, we never did go over.
So I'm sure
Yeah,
that's could use it.
Monica gave us instructions, and it's definitely something that we could just do. It's just going to take a day of time and some elbow grease, but
Yeah, at this point, we might as well wait until it's actually put back in the library to clean it.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
Okay, so the other item I'm going to reach out to Hacker on is to see how much detail we can get on potential placement locations for artwork all across the library, and lighting that's available for those spots, dimensions, anything I missed.
Yes, if it was possible, if they could actually have a photo of, not a drawing, but a photo of the area of each wall as they're listing it.
I'll ask. Okay.
That would be very helpful because then we'll be able to at least get some sense of the lighting.
Okay. And then we'll look to, I haven't been in the library either. Like Chris said, it's moving along. Aaron had said that they intend to open it in July and would start moving in not until June is when they could get occupancy to start moving things in. So the whole timeline, the returning works, that's something that's made me a bit nervous. And I think it mostly is those larger pieces, just coordinating where those are going to go. And so we'll ask about the birds. I kind of have an impression that there really might not be a place for those. And so I can verify they're presently in storage in the library in the basement. So I don't know if those would need to move right away if we don't have another option. So just a lot of little details that I think we'll need to figure out as we get close.
Eileen?
Heather, do you know if there has been any discussion about Kristen Kuhn's pieces being put back in, the two sculptures?
No, I haven't heard.
Also, the other thing was the glass etching that used to be in the children's area. Did that remain?
I thought that was gone.
Yeah, they were supposed to leave it because it actually was shatterproof, supposedly. So I just, those two are two big ones that they're the foundation's collection, but they still will impact our placements as well. So
Another really large piece is that Tower of Books.
Where was that?
Falling Books? You mean
Yeah.
Hess's
Yeah.
Falling Books?
Mhm.
Currently, that's in the library over at Willamette. It's not huge. So I think that will probably get a prominent spot as well, but it'll be easier to move that into place, I think.
How tall is it?
It's not that high. It's
3.5.
maybe about 3.5 to 4, maybe at the highest.
Okay, for some reason I just imagine it taller than that.
Oh, because it was sitting beside the stairs, and it always looked imposing
Okay.
because it was on a pedestal, kind of a raised platform.
So the other thing I can do is compile photos. We have photos for everything, I believe. And so I can consolidate those for our collection so that once, however we move forward to start looking and parsing through those, that can facilitate. I'm assuming this is going to be kind of subcommittee discussions. So I guess that was the other thing. So, when we wanted to start resuming those, meet up with Kate, probably after we get some more information from Hacker, but maybe starting next month, we'd want to start looking at that. So I can schedule. But let me know. I assumed that would be Eileen and the collection subcommittee, which I believe was Eileen, Paula, Rachel previously. I don't know if folks still have time and are interested in taking that on. So let me know.
Also, I can send you these lists. That would probably save you a lot of time, Heather.
I have the list, the final list from Jennifer X Gallery of what's up there that we put in storage.
Okay, yeah, and the list that Kate and I after the meeting that Paula was talking about. I mean, it's got lots of notes on it now, but
Sure.
Send those off to you.
If you don't mind, that'd be great. Yeah.
It has both the foundation and our SPAC.
And then one other thing before I forget, we had talked about, hiring that process, some of that reinstall back out. And so this is all new to me. I assume that we'll need some estimates if we're, I assume we're still looking to do that once we parse through and figure out what's going to be returning. So I'll need to reach out and get estimates for that.
I think Paula and I haven't had time to talk to you about it to see how you feel, but I think that some of the preliminary placement, Paula and I could work out. You know, we don't need to be doing the installation itself, but I think that we could figure out the placements, which would save a lot of both time and money.
Yeah, I just assumed that we would decide what's going where, and then we would be hiring somebody to do the actual install.
Right.
Okay.
Don't-
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think
guys
that-
agree? I mean,
I totally agree.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. So it's just install only.
Yeah.
And the other question that I saw on your notes earlier was about editing the tags that go with the artwork. And when Paul and I went through and looked at each piece individually and remeasured and whatever, we made a tremendous amount of corrections. And so we actually do have a list that's current of the work. So that is something that I think that we probably need to make sure that we are the ones editing it.
Perfect. That I wanted to just make sure of that as well.
also, I mean, we had talked about this a little while ago, and I don't know if it's something we want to try to pursue, but I think the last time they did the installation, they wanted to have more lengthy labels. And now the desire, I think, is to have something a little more just short and sweet. But we had talked about possibly doing a brochure or a guide to the art in the library where it has more extensive information about the artists and the works, sort of a gallery guide, as it were. And is that something we want to try to do concurrently and have available at the library?
I think there should definitely be something that's web-based. In fact, it would be interesting to have a laptop that you could actually, that would be devoted to, a guide to the artwork throughout the building. But I think it would be very nice to just commemorate the new installation with some type of publication. It doesn't have to be complicated, but I think it would be nice to just literally document the whole art reinstall acquisition process. It'd be interesting to look at some other sort of some best practices are for art collections in buildings, and who's done a good job, of connecting to the audiences. And then thinking about what languages that publication would need to be in. I think of the school district and how many different languages are spoken in Salem Kaiser schools. But that would be a good thing to think about and have on our agenda for our next meeting. To look at some good examples. I can't think of one off the top of my head, except the Valley Library at Oregon State has a very large public art collection. That would be an interesting one to look at. Also, maybe the Central Library in Multnomah County.
All right, a lot of moving parts to that. Feels like.
What I love about this group is that there is no shortage of ideas. I mean, really, it's like, yeah, we should be thinking about that.
One other idea then related to this, if we're on the subject of ideas, I think it would be good to include Sarah in some discussion of that in terms of a guide or
Mhm.
an online thing or whatever form it takes. Because I think that there are also some programming opportunities for the library that involve the collection, the art collection as part of the library's collection, as it were.
Hmm.
And maybe we can talk with her about that, because most of the artists that are represented are integral to Salem's history. And so there are a lot of connections to be made. And I think that if we can get Sarah as library director on board and thinking about the art collection that's within the library as a resource and like a library collection in many ways, as a way to tell stories about the Willamette Valley and the artists who work here.
I think
I
she-
also think that Kylie Pine, who's the curator at Willamette Heritage Center, could contribute to content around a project like that. Because their archive is very rich, and I think a lot of people just are not aware of the richness of it.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's a good idea.
I mean, also there's going to be that space that they would like to have rotating exhibitions, I think, or not exhibitions necessarily, but works, the corridor. I mean, maybe Kylie would be interested in mounting something there from their collection that is historic and relevant. I mean, I don't know what they have that maybe could tie back to the art collection, or I don't know.
I like that idea, Rachel. That's a strong one for opening when the library opens, to have something of the heritage.
In that space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she's still furloughed. I know that she was.
They're closed. They put out a notice recently that they will remain closed, but that it sounded like you could still submit some research requests, which said to me that Kylie was working at least part-time. But that was an assumption that I made. I sent her an email about something related to my neighborhood, and I did not get a reply, but she could have been furloughed at that time.
Do we know if anything came of the when the police station asked about those historic artifacts and things that they wanted to install in the lobby area of the new police station?
I haven't had any conversations with DC Belshaw about that, and I've not yet been inside. So
Okay.
I should. That was in the back of my head a while back. So reach out and get some info on that. Just an update would be interesting.
I'm just thinking
You
that
know,
if
Spencer?
she's still furloughed, she might be available to help them.
I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wondered about that as well. I've never been inside the building. So is that building so given the COVID restrictions, that building is closed to the public, so nobody would be able to use that conference room? The only people who are in and out of the building are the actual police officers, correct?
I'm not positive on that. That would make sense. But I thought I'd seen folks go in and out. So I'm not 100%.
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we could, when we're able to, maybe we could just meet over there, at some point, look at the sculpture as a group, and then take a look at whatever was installed in terms of those artifacts.
And Heather, do you know what's happened with the interpretive area outside of the police station and along the creek, where they're planning to do that through the historic preservation
Yeah, again, I haven't heard anything, so I'm glad you brought these questions up today. I'll ask, and I think it'd be awesome if we could go on site here soon and kind of see some of these things if they're ready. So that's on my list.
Should we move on to the convention center?
Sure.
Okay, so home pool was delivered to the convention center. It's packed, it's wrapped. Stephen Adams brought it over from Richard Thompson's studio, I imagine. And the convention center remains closed. So I did have a request from Chrissy Birch at the convention center to provide some copy for someone who does some blogging for them, who was going to write something for the convention center website. And I gave her some background on Richard Thompson and the selection process, and she thanked me. And I'm not sure what her schedule is. I haven't had a reason. Chrissy's been out on vacation for a couple weeks. I think she might be back at work now, but I'm not sure. And all the staff, except for two other guys working part-time, they're basically laid off for as long as the building can't open. So there's no big rush. The Oregon Artist Series Foundation was sitting on some money, and Rob Bibler was the second choice in terms of a purchase for the convention center. And Mary Lou Zeke and I were able to convince OASF to buy a Rob Bibler piece, which it's a beautiful piece. I'm not sure, but I have the final image of it, but I can circulate that. So the convention center will have home pool to install, as well as a pretty sizable Rob Bibler piece, which is quite a stunning painting. Rob is going to have it framed up at Framing Resource in Portland, and I'm not sure what the timeline is for that. I don't even know if he's gotten paid yet. So that's one of the reasons why I mentioned the possibility of moving the Widman out of the convention center, because these other two big pieces will go in. And I guess, and I haven't had an update on Richard Thompson's health. You know, he has a brain cancer, and his condition he's declining pretty rapidly. I know his wife was interested in a media release, and I'll check back with Stephen Adams and just find out like how fast Richard is declining. But he is quite a remarkable guy, and I do think, you know, it's a good story in terms of a regional artist and, you know, placement in a building that actually serves the region. You know, the convention center is an award-winning facility and so on. And then if it's paired with a Bibler, you know, then it's it's a really nice local story about two now pretty, you know, senior established painters, both of whom are longtime educators, you know, and they've done a lot both have done lots in the community. So that's kind of that on the convention center, unless I forgot something.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel.
Can I ask a question? Chris, can you say anything? I don't know if anything is public or known, but the Oregon Artist Series Foundation plans about a gallery or something. I got the letter from them at the end of the year, and it mentioned something about a gallery space downtown. Do you know?
Oh, I can talk about that.
Yeah.
So there have been several installations at the convention center that OASF has been supportive of. One is, and they're all on the second floor. So one is a series of photographs by Kelly James. One was another photographic series that Mary Lou Zeek and Rich Harcourt did, which is was more back towards the elevator. And Chrissy is who's the general manager of the convention center, she's quite supportive of having art in the building because they enhance her visitor experience. So there was conversation about, well, what if some of this work on the second floor, especially the works that were back towards the elevators, could be refreshed, and maybe there would be an opportunity to have work by other artists in that space. So what OASF is partnering with the convention center on is using that wall for what might be 2 or 3 changing things over the course of the year that might give people the management company is there to make money for this building. So it could bring in other people who would go and have lunch at Bentley's and come, and look at a show. It could be that there could be a special cocktail that Bentley's would invent, would be served, that would relate to the artists who might be, might have work there, or that maybe there would be a thematic show that would relate to something else going on in the community. That's kind of as far as it's gotten. But and the building's closed, so, and there is no indication of when the building might reopen. But that's kind of the thinking, that it's, work might be for sale. OASF is not there would be no commission, if let's say, Richard Thompson, let's say that there's a small show of other paintings by Richard Thompson that might be up when the building reopens and his piece is unveiled. And let's say somebody wanted to buy one of those works, OASF would not, they would just sell it. All the money would go to the artist or the artist's estate. So it's not like this is designed to be a commercial competitive effort with anyone. It's really more an effort to continue to enliven the space using artwork, but not have a static show, especially by people who are on the board of that nonprofit. Kelly, you're muted.
Being one of the artists whose work we're talking about, I will say I think that's a good idea.
I think I'm not sure they're talking about moving your piece, although SCC has said that they've basically said if your piece were to be moved, they would like it to be moved into their admin space, their administrative, front office, rather than go back to you. Do they own that work, or do you own that
I
work?
think it was purchased from
Okay.
me. So yeah, they own it. Yeah.
Because I know that the photographs by Harcourt and Zeek, they're already out of the building. That was just kind of a loan.
Yeah.
But that, I'd be happy to answer any more questions, but that's the general thinking.
I think it's good that maybe there's some more turnover, or an area that has turnover.
Yeah.
And I can see, like you were saying, that maybe they come up with a drink that's, I can just see the branding and the marketing that can go along with that. And it adds more interest, that you can get people going there to see new art. If we ever get back to a first Wednesday or whatever we were doing, and there could be people going to the convention center too. So that, helps to engage not only that artwork that's there on a changing basis, but also the artwork that's there on a permanent basis. So.
Yeah. And that when the building's open, it's quite busy.
Yeah.
Summer is slow, but it's the Rotary meets there regularly. The state uses the space for things. It's a viable convention center. So it's just, it's another opportunity, for a regional artist to, have a presence. I'm glad you asked. Should we move on, Heather?
Yeah, sure.
So Heather put together a document kind of with what do we have ahead of us? And you can see, we've talked about a lot of it this morning, but we've got a fair amount going on. We didn't talk this morning about next steps for murals, next steps for the Echo Earth Ball, the council chamber doors, now the new state of the Mattingly mural, continuing conversations about art in parks or any kind of a temporary thing. And then the city has some capital projects that are in the queue for development.
Mhm.
So I think it's really helpful to have this outline of kind of where we are and what we've got so that we don't forget. And then I guess Heather suggested we may want to create some work groups to keep things going in between these monthly meetings. I wholeheartedly support that. But Heather, do you want to talk more about this?
Sure. Let me know if you want me to pull that back up. I can share that on the screen, or if you just want to kind of chat about some of those. We've covered most of the items. It feels to me like we have a lot going on. And there's a couple timelines that we're working with, the opening of the library in July. And there's a lot that will need to happen before that. The council chambers doors, they're in the process of being removed right now, and they're going to be stored at the first floor on the old police station down there in the evidence room, I'm told. I've not been in to see. But those will need to, the deadline for getting those back out of there was into summer from facility staff. So I imagine, I know we wanted to spend a bit more time kind of researching, the history around those plaques and in those doors, and make a final determination if we wanted to try to save the doors or pull those plaques out, and then how those will be displayed. They're just going to need to be displayed somewhere else on the Civic Center campus. But so there'll be a fair amount of time, I imagine, kind of getting that finalized. And then I know there's a lot of interest in moving forward on the mural discussions again. And the Eco Earth, they're going to have the Rotary completed, I believe July as well, is the last I saw. So there's not a real rush. I mean, I think that's going to be more visible likely to folks, once that opens, but that's going to be a big process in itself of kind of convening stakeholders. Really we're going to need a stakeholder group, a blue ribbon committee of sorts, to kind of lead any kind of fundraising effort or grant application process for that. So that's a big one. So just a lot kind of on our plate, and I was hoping to, I guess, just open discussion today, kind of finalize who might want to be engaged in those separate efforts. I'm imagining a lot of separate committee meetings to kind of work through some of these. So I just wanted to have that discussion. And Chris, thank you for helping. She polished that list. Was pretty rough. I sent it her way, and she really cleaned that up. So thank you. And by the way, I did get an email from Kate. She was listening in this morning. She had a few answers to some of the questions that were brought up today. I could share that.
Oh, great.
Let's see.
She's been such a positive collaborator on this whole process.
Awesome. Let's see the etched glass in the skylight remains. The etched glass overlooking the main floor was returned to the artist.
That's what I thought.
Oh, that was the outside of the area, not the one that was central. Is that correct?
Sounds like that's the one that remains, I would imagine.
Right.
Glass in the skylight of children.
The other one was not shatterproof.
That sounds right. She expressed interest in collaborating on a brochure.
Perfect.
Let's see, she's going to send photos shortly. text from the tags. She agrees that she would like the commission to be in charge of the text for all labels. And the stairwell from the second to the ground floor will remain, so the Leduc piece may be able to go there at the base of those stairs. She did mention the other day in the meeting, and that was probably her doing, that she'd shared some information on that with Hacker. So Hacker's already aware of that piece, and I guess has been mindful of that. So, and then one other comment, that the children's librarians would like to reserve the following space for their use. So some space that will not be available: the wall space in the picture book area, wall space on the way to the discovery room, and story room wall spaces.
Got that written down. Kate sent that yesterday.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Well, it's great that she was listening in.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I can be involved in any or many of these items. I do think that it'd be good to just kind of take a step back from the murals and just figure out, what are we really trying to do? And then how do we get there? So, are we trying to enliven other parts of the city? Are we trying to create a program for artists that right now is unfunded? What are we trying to do? To just have that conversation and then figure out how to work with or through the city's legal people. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, we can create a program, but as long as it's not funded, what are we really doing? So Echo Earth, my biggest worry is that when this beautiful outdoor amphitheater opens in Riverfront Park next summer, we've got a big broken work of art that's right close by it. That's going to be an embarrassment. And I completely get why why it's not a high priority in terms of capital project, plan for the coming year. But I think that's going to be a tough one to come up with the money for. The other stuff, I think we're in good shape on. Library seems like it's in really good shape. Mattingly mural, does that remain property of the Elsinore, or does the city take that over? That's another financial, unbudgeted thing. I'm personally interested in trying to figure out some art in parks things, and I could help. I can start looking for some good examples on different scales. And then I'm the person who added the new city capital projects to the bottom of this list, because I think if we could be involved earlier in the design conversations, for some integrated elements, that might be appropriate for the kinds of projects that are, being discussed, like a navigation center for people, or what have you, where decorative work is probably not going to be, it might not be suitable for the kinds of buildings, and something more integrated might be, or functional. So what about anything that we should add to this list?
I do think that we need to pay attention to the fact that the website has some errors on it.
It still does. Thank you.
So that we need to clean that up again.
And you're
Yep.
referring to the list of the artworks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's on me. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kelly?
There's been some discussion about trying to expand the commission to promote maybe a little more diversity in our members. I know that's kind of a complicated issue, but I just wonder if that's something that we ought to consider as well.
Yes, we should.
And for me, the mural program is pretty time sensitive, because I'm finding personally that I have a real problem having to figure out what to do when we have our votes on things. For instance, because of the legal ramifications of it, I think I will always be voting no. And so it's just, I would really like to be able to figure out how, given what legal has told us, how we move forward with that, with any murals.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we need to figure out what the intent of the program is and who can, like is outlined here and what Heather circulated, who needs to be involved. And then once we have a framework for what we'd like it to look like, then get with legal to see how it needs to be worded and incorporated into the code, or if there's a need for code changes, and then what the process would be for people who would like to do a mural. And I mean, for me, I think that if we wait to do that until there's funding for murals, we're going to be waiting a long time. And in the meantime, we'll continue to have people who are applying to put murals up. And so we'll be coming back again to the same conversation over and over again. And I do think that if there was a process by which people could apply, and if they wanted to have a mural and wanted to pursue that and had their own funding, and if there was an avenue to go, to get to the end product of having a mural, that the funding is almost a separate piece in my mind, because funding could come from a lot of different sources, and it's going to depend on who's applying to do the mural. I mean, there might be a group in town who would like to see a mural in their neighborhood or something, and they have their own funding, or they want to raise funds to do it, or they've applied to a grant program and secured funds. I mean, we don't have to be the entity that's providing funds. I mean, we could ostensibly at some point in time earmark a certain percentage of our annual budget to a mural program or something like that. But I don't think we should have that as the stumbling block for creating a program and a process.
And actually it comes up because the Rivers condos have raised that possibility again, that they are going to find their own artists and work up a design. And I'm reading that in the notes last time, and I thought, oh no, not again. No.
So I guess, yeah, that's what I was hoping from this discussion. I imagine that might be that some folks would want to just dive in on that as well. So I guess what I'm hoping for that would help me moving forward is, do we want to start scheduling separate meetings in January? We're already kind of about halfway through January. I'm game for, if folks are interested in trying to set something up to start talking about murals, or to start talking about the library, or maybe that discussion gets tagged in with the chamber's doors. I don't know, but who wants to be involved and when we want to get started. I'm a bit nervous on time for at least the library. I know other folks aren't. I'm nervous about it. I don't know why. I think it's just the coordination that I'm imagining. And then I don't, do we want to do we want to start discussions about the Eco Globe? Do we want to have those during the routine meetings? Just looking for feedback, and then I'm willing to start scheduling.
Eileen?
Heather, as far as the library, I think we're in an okay spot at this point. And now that we are reestablishing the subcommittee, which I'm really happy about, we can maybe schedule something for February. But now in the discussions that Kate and I have been having just the last few days, we'll bump that out to include the whole committee, the subcommittee. And so I think we're moving on a path on that one. So I'm not too worried about that, as far as we will have functioning installation planned and ready by the time that the library opens. But I am quite concerned about the mural program. It's just not, it's a really thorny issue, and we haven't really been able to devote the time that's necessary to really crack it in the regular meetings. So that is one that I really would like to see us resolve, because frankly, it leaves the SPAC as the bad guy, and not of our making, because we have to respond to legal's restrictions.
Paula, were you gonna say something?
Oh, just about the library. I was just thinking, Eileen, you and I should probably meet soon and go over all those condition reports well before the work comes
Right.
back from Portland,
Okay.
and
That
see if
sounds
there's anything we can do, you know, between now and then. That seems timely. I feel like we are pretty organized with the other parts of it, but
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing, I'll send you the list again.
that'd be great.
And then we can talk about it.
So maybe hold off on a meeting, separate meeting about the library for now, and I'll reach out to Hacker and try to get some more information, and you guys will have some discussions, and that helps to ease my mind that you guys that you guys feel calm around that.
But the questions for Hacker, really, those are important, because those are the pivotal works that we're trying to cite.
Right.
So I really, really would like to hear what their response is to those.
Okay. So on this idea of murals, then, do we want to start? I'm not yet. Let me step back. It sounds like we want to regroup internally, those of us who are interested, to kind of figure out our desired goals for that program. Correct? So we could potentially do that in the next few weeks if folks were willing and available, or we could look to February to start that. You guys let me know.
Yeah, I'm available to meet.
I'm available to meet.
And I'd like to be part of it, but I'm not really available for the next couple of weeks.
Do we want to focus the discussion in February on murals, or try to have a side meeting? It sounds like quite a few of us are interested in chatting about that. That could be our February focus.
Yeah, and I think that would be I think that would be fine, but I think it would be helpful to create kind of just a one-pager on kind of like a SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, very high level, and then figure out where the obstacles are. You know, figure out what are we really trying to do and why are we not getting there. Yeah.
You guys had mentioned having others involved in that discussion, and I reached out to staff just to make sure, as long as we can invite folks, as long as we notice, post that on our calendar, however we want to proceed down the road.
Seems to me that maybe if we put together some scenarios or some pathways to what we thought could work, and then we had people comment, or we had input from others, it seems to me that we've got a pretty good amount of expertise within this group, that we should be able to at least put together an outline of what we intend. And I'd rather get started sooner than later, personally.
So maybe we can, Heather, I'm happy to kind of to help just put some basic thoughts on paper, and then we can build from there. share that, figure out who else in the community, would be a good contributor to the conversation at this stage. I don't know off the top of my head. And I think it would be interesting to also get the community development people in the city at the, into the conversation.
Okay, do we want to try to schedule something? Eileen's not available for a couple weeks. Are we okay waiting till February? Either.
No, I'm not doing anything. My schedule is wide open.
And as long as it's not on a Friday, I'm available.
Okay, good.
All right, so I have Kelly and Chris. Rachel, I assume, you're pretty busy right now, right?
I can make myself available if I have notice. So my
Okay.
schedule is flexible.
Shall I do a doodle for a mural discussion? Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great. Okay. So it sounds like, we have a path forward in the library. Again, the council chambers by the end of summer, so that's coming up. If we feel like any side discussions or separate might help with that, let me know. If there's any priorities we've missed, let me know. But I think we have a lot going.
I think it would be good to also figure out, maybe from Kimberly Fitzgerald or the State Historic Preservation Office, whether there are any landmark type issues around the council chamber doors. Because I know that the building isn't City Hall being considered for a National Register nomination.
Right.
So just trying to figure out where there might be any bumps that we're not anticipating.
So we had to, that's why we had to file an application with SHPO to remove and replace the doors. And so that was sent. They returned a letter approving that, with the condition basically being that the plaques or the artwork, they had preferred the doors intact. In conversation with Kimberly, she really felt like that is really up to that's going to fall back on the art commission to make that final call. That was their recommendation. But really the piece need to be placed on somewhere on the Civic Center campus for future display was the solid.
Okay.
But could you clarify that again, Heather? You say that the historical says that the doors should remain intact?
They had some language in the letter, and I don't have the letter pulled up this morning, that implied that the doors themselves would be displayed. And I had questioned Kimberly about that, and it was her take, and she works with these folks quite often, that really that wasn't that wouldn't be a primary top concern of SHPO. More important was that it would be displayed on the campus. But we can clarify and reach back out to them before we make any decisions.
If you could clarify that, that would be great, because I know that there would be two thoughts on that the actual door framing is similar to the frame of an artwork, of a 2D artwork. So yeah, if we could clarify that, that would be great.
Out to them, sure.
Connected to that project, I am still very curious about how that particular artist was selected for that commission. And I know I did some research, but I haven't been able to find out what the root of that is. Whether there was any kind of competitive process, or whether he was just seemed like the appropriate man because he had worked in Corvallis and was taught at OSU. People knew him, or whether the architects picked him. I'd like to know that.
Can you remind me the name of that artist? I forgot.
It starts with a T.
Wayne Taysom. So
Is that TASOM?
TAY, I think, SOM.
Okay.
So when we were researching the Tom Hardy piece that used to be outside in the courtyard of the Civic Center, I went to the library and inquired if they had information about the, well, actually, remember we thought there were photos of it in the Statesman Journal. And so I went over to the library and talked to the reference desk librarian who pulled a whole folder of information from one of their vertical files that had press clippings and brochures and historical pieces related to the construction of the Civic Center back in the early 70s. So they had like the early drawings of the site and why, press coverage of why they were building a new civic center and sort of the public relations campaign around that and everything else. So within that, there were some documents that were specific to the art collection. And when it first opened, they had the show and then they bought certain pieces and some pieces were purchased and given to the city. But in any case, I'm telling you all this because I know the library has this file, but obviously right now it's, I'm sure, in deep storage somewhere and inaccessible. But I think once the library starts moving back into the library, that we would be able to access that. And within that, there's probably some information about the doors.
Great. That's
just
great.
When
to
I was
know.
looking at that, I wasn't, looking at it for anything about the doors. So I don't remember seeing anything specifically about that, but there was a lot of info. I remember in particular one brochure that talked about the design of the building and, all of that. So it seems to me that within that, there would probably be some discussion of the doors because they seem, they're obviously integral to the building.
Okay. I can, so yeah, I think you're probably right. It's probably buried right now, unfortunately. I'll check back in with Kimberly, see if she has any suggestions. I'll look back through, when I resumed this role, I was handed boxes of information, old papers, and I've scanned through that before. It's a lot, but I'll scan back through as I get a chance and try to make sure that we don't have anything else. I'm worried since we will need to have those moved probably by the time that the library is opening, that we probably don't have time to wait unless somebody can help find that information sooner. But it's nice to know that you found that. So I'll start doing some checking.
I'm just wondering too if the Willamette Heritage Center, they might have something because there was a ton of, to me, it seemed like there was quite a fair bit of press coverage leading up to the building itself, and that it was a big deal at the time in Salem to build this gigantic facility that they also thought was going to last, I think, a lot longer than it did when now the city has kind of outgrown that. So that was kind of interesting to read those articles. And I'm sure that they may have copies of some of those pieces at Willamette Heritage Center. Just seems like they would.
Yeah, I could reach out to Kylie Pine. I think they are providing some research stuff. I know her personally. I don't know, was the Statesman Journal the paper in Salem in 1972? When did the Capital Journal become the Statesman Journal? Anybody know that?
I think it was after that.
Okay. Yeah, but it's great to know that the library has the information. That makes perfect sense. I would think that the Willamette Heritage would have comparable stuff. And this week I have been on the Statesman, I've been in the Statesman's online, in the library's online photo archive, but I was looking for a different topic. So I can see if there's anything in there as well.
Yeah, I just did a quick little look. It merged. It was the Oregon, what was it, the Statesman, and then it merged with the Capital Journal in 1973.
Oh, okay. So a year after.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who has the archives from the Capital Journal. I mean, these are good local history questions. But I do think getting, whatever happens with the TASEM panels going forward, we're going to want all this background in order to be able to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen.
Hearing all this jars my memory. I also think that maybe we should add to the list, and this may end up being a huge thing or maybe small, but to verify that we have accepted into the collection all of the artwork that we currently think has been accepted into the collection.
Yeah. And that could be tied in with the website, just verifying the collection, the accuracy of what's posted online, and moving forward with any kind of a publication related to the library.
That seems very important. I do think it's going to be fairly big just to go through the documents that we have and verify and connect, but I think it's needed. And I think Courtney likely did some of that, and I just need to find that information. Any other thoughts on the priorities issues?
I think it's good to have it all. Sorry, I'm getting text attacks by my family. I think it's good to just have this all kind of outlined on paper.
Let me know if I haven't spent time trying to put that into kind of a calendar, if that would be helpful, or if we're more comfortable just kind of having these discussions and kind of morphing as we move forward. Let me know what you'd like me to do or what would help.
I think plotting it out month by month for the next 6 months would be super helpful.
I'll take a stab. Thank you.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. And I guess I'm just curious what the opening of the amphitheater in Riverfront Park is going to look like in terms of performance. I mean, in a perfect world, it would be amazing to have a temporary work of public art somewhere in that area of the city at the same time. But I don't think we have the bandwidth to do that right now. I want to bring up one other thing. Let me first say, are we ready to accept Equitas into the Salem Public Art Collection? Or should we do that following Heather's site visit with the lighting people on Friday?
I think it should be working before we accept it.
All right, so should we hold off and do that in February then? All right, I'm seeing nodding heads. Here's one thing that Heather alerted me to yesterday, and that is that the area surrounding the Oregon State Capitol is now an Oregon State Park. And that was done because Parks is lottery funded, and when the state general fund was strapped for money, the legislature thought that it would be good to make it a park, and then the lottery would have to pay for all that maintenance. And it's by and large been a good thing, I think. However, now with the lack of a capital planning commission, because that was defunded a while back, there have been multiple efforts to install things on the Capitol Mall. And there is now a proposal to create a Vietnam memorial in the area of the Capitol Mall that is across the street from the Hallie Ford Museum of Art. And State Parks is taking public comment on what looks to be a fully designed plan that includes a sculpture by Rip Caswell, who did the Tom McCall piece. And then he's a figurative sculptor from Troutdale, and some other elements. So my question is, and I find this troubling because, one, there is no design direction coming from any kind of a public body, but I am uncomfortable with being asked to basically like give a thumbs up or thumbs down to a piece that seems to have been brought by a veterans group without any public conversation. And the design itself was not selected through any kind of a competitive or open process, as we did with Equitas, as we did with the library. So, and Parks they've created a public process for commenting, and then they'll decide what to do. It seems like the whole deal is cooked. Mayor of Salem has signed on as an endorser, some prominent legislators. But it troubles me that something that would be this large and significant would be made up of like B-grade designers and artists. So, but I don't know if this is the sort of thing that the Salem Public Art Commission wants to comment on or not. And maybe what I should do is to circulate the information that Heather sent to me. I did go on the website last night because I was curious, and this thing it's designed and it's not terribly attractive. I'm not in favor of these memorials going in the Capitol Mall in general. And I am just, as someone who worked in the public sector for so long, it's very troubling that there's no appropriate group that's driving these kinds of decisions. So they become political, and they're political, and they end up with something that's half-baked. Anyway, maybe I should just circulate that to the group, and if people have reactions.
Who's driving the bus?
A veterans group.
Okay. And so, well, the way it stands now, anyone can go to the Capitol Mall Commission or whoever oversees that and apply to have a memorial or
Yeah, pretty much.
installation.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
There used to be, when there was a capital planning commission, there were real architects on it, there were very rigorous standards, and that just it's just not there anymore.
So was it disbanded or?
Yes, it was unfunded and then disbanded.
Oh, I see.
When was that? Do you know?
I bet it was 10 years ago, maybe longer. Remember when there was that big cutback in state funding? There were 5 special sessions. It might have been around
2008.
2008.
I remember, because the Arts Commission General Fund was suspended over a weekend, and I got to my office and I had no more general fund in my budget at all. And we just froze everything. And I didn't we suspended our grant making, and I didn't have to lay anybody off, but it was awful. So
as it is, it's part of state parks, and so so they obviously have no plan for the Capitol grounds. They just are maintaining it. Is that? And then,
I don't believe there is I would say I don't believe there's a master plan, but I don't know. I didn't get that far last night. I got into the website on this thing, and then, yeah, it's just not, for me, it's about, if this is a capital city, there should be some vision that's beyond B grade. All right, so Heather, maybe you could circulate that, and they're on a very short timeline. I think the public comment is taken until what, before the end of the month of January.
I just pulled up the news release. Yeah, it says they're having an online Q&A on the 20th to collect public feedback. It's the Vietnam War Memorial Fund that's coordinating this, and the deadline for comment is January 22nd.
Yeah,
And is that something that's put out by Oregon State Parks?
yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I go back to when the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. was created. There was a design competition, and the very young Maya Lin won the competition for a very striking and non-traditional memorial that's become an icon for contemporary memorials. And, we should have the opportunity to have a memorial on that level and not just, accept, literally B grade stuff. Eileen.
Yeah, and after the myelin piece was installed, there was a lot of people that were complaining about it. And so they ended up putting in another sculpture that was more realistic. But when I was there visiting my son and daughter-in-law, we were there and I sat there for a long time because it was just, the myelin memorial was just so moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple and it's so dramatic with all the names. And I was noticing nobody was looking at the other sculpture.
Yeah.
They
I don't
were
even know where that is. And I lived there for 10 years.
Yeah.
The other sculpture, I mean, it's so a
it's
non,
you just walk right by it
yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
So
There's a really good documentary about the making of that memorial, and there was a lot of pushback about having her selected and her vision, and there were some compromises that were made along the way, but when she was chosen, the committee that chose her really believed in what she was proposing and pushed for it. And now, like you said, Eileen, it's so incredible it's a very moving experience to go to it and see the reaction of people who are visiting it. And you probably know, but people leave all kinds of things
Mhm.
there at the base of it. And those have all been collected and I think exhibited in some way, sometimes at the Museum of American History. But I agree. I think that it's sad that there's no one paying attention to what's happening down there. I mean, it is in Salem, and we kind of suffer that same fate of a capital city that has, in our case, the state government within our city, but then we're not really part of the planning of that space. And it's a similar thing that happens like in DC, where you have the federal government and then the local government. So
Looking at their design, they're essentially kind of mimicking the Washington, D.C., at least for a portion of what they're proposing, which of course is kind of sad to me, as I've seen every other Vietnam memorial, they are doing that. And that they do say that 18 months of meetings is what it took to get to accept the design. I mean, there's no real listing of what they did to come up with this design. So
Yeah.
Were you able to find info just on the parks page?
no, I went right to the
Yeah.
Vietnam War
Oh,
Memorial of Oregon State Capitol Grounds. They have a website on the War Memorial, Vietnam War Memorial Fund.org.
Well, I can go ahead and forward the release just so everyone has it.
Okay, that'd be great, Heather.
And then are folks interested? It sounds like Rachel had seen the Salem report, or do others want to see the piece, the one piece that we've seen so far on Equitas? I can forward. I have a copy.
I think it would be good for you to share that.
Send both of those.
Other comments from any commissioners before we wrap up? Eileen?
One question, and is, did anybody from the city, Heather, sit in on the National Endowment for Humanities grant?
I did. Thank you for bringing that up. I wasn't able to sit through all of it. I got pulled away, but I did sit through the beginning of it. And I'd taken some notes. It was a bit daunting from my perspective, maybe. They were really looking for, let's see, I had some notes here. So it was the webinar of National Endowment for the Humanities. Yeah, funds that could, they're looking at projects that involved, engaged, underrepresented communities, projects that were used in public programming and education. And I think we could speak to that. I became a bit nervous, I guess, as I sat through their discussion and the projects that they were funding. It seemed like maybe a bit of a stretch from what we were thinking.
So we'll let that go.
I don't recall the deadline. I think it was shortly thereafter. That was.
Yeah, I think it's actually January something. So, okay.
I do think on this, on the topic of, funds for archiving and taking care of our collection, that we should look at the Oregon Heritage Commission grant program and see whether there's a fit there, not only for some of our archiving needs, but for the Echo Earth Ball. And I know the Oregon Community Foundation has a deadline coming up. I can reach out to their staff person and ask her whether, she thinks that coming to them for the Echo Earth Ball seems reasonable at all. Their next deadline, I think, will be in July, but I can do that. I need to talk to her about something else. I think some of these federal grant applications they're just complicated. I mean, I used to have my staff do all the technical stuff for me. It's just a nuisance. I mean, I get the fact that everybody wants their grant program automated these days, but I'll tell you, the feds there's a lot of paperwork. Well, it's not on paper, but there's a lot of effort that goes into this stuff. All right, any other comments? Were you going to say something, Heather?
I did. I almost forgot. I could question real quickly. Folks have heard of Ron Cooper?
Yeah.
Another photographer here. We've purchased, I think, over the years, a few photos from him. We have a couple, I know, of aerials of the city and whatnot. He apparently took a couple photos recently of the police station. There's one that focuses right on Equitas. So it's obviously something that we would have to purchase if we were interested in. I wanted to bring it to this group quickly. If we do decide to purchase, it would have to come from the art fund. But it's something that we could use in any future promotions, I guess, of the piece or on our webpage. It was $150, and I could show if folks want to see that today. Obviously, no pressure. It was something that came across my desk yesterday.
Why don't you share the images if you can?
My internet is cutting out. Can you repeat how much it is?
150.
And then we have complete rights to do anything with that image that we want?
Gosh, I think so, but I'll double check. Okay. not showing. Gosh darn it, this thing. Okay, thank you for your patience, not letting me minimize. All right, I don't know. For some reason, it's not letting me share that. I could share with you guys if folks promise not to share, since it's not yet been purchased.
Yeah, I'm fine with you sharing it with the group. I don't have any objection, provided that we get all the rights. Kelly, you probably know more about this than I do, but I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of money. I did see the images; they look pretty good to me, and I guess Urban Development's going to buy one of the Ron Cooper images. We would buy another one.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why it's not letting me share right now, but I can forward.
Yeah, the only thing, just a statement giving us usage rights. If that might be, he'd want more for that, but knowing Ron, I would doubt it. So
Okay. Okay, well, maybe I'll forward that out. If folks object, let me know. Again, $150 out of the art fund, and maybe we can use it on the web. It's a close-up shot looking through Equitas at the police station. It did look kind of cool, so I'll send that with the others.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else before we adjourn? Right on schedule. All right, we are adjourned at 11:31 a.m. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Thanks for all the good work.
I thank you.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.